Let's have your thoughts on this. Should Prince Harry spend more time in the UK? 0207 862 2222. That's our next subject. The Duke of Sussex is reportedly hoping to return to the UK every few months following a successful visit in July, with plans to spend more time with his family, carry out charity work and support the Invictus Games. Harry currently lives in California with Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, and their children Archie and Lilibet, Prince and Princess. But during an extended stay in the UK last month, the Sussexes and their children were hosted by the King and Queen at Highgrove for a private family occasion. So what about that? The plan to come back? What do you think, if it exists?
Absolutely. I would wholeheartedly agree with this. The royal family needs someone like Harry, who has a wonderful natural charm, is marvellous with people, who does fantastic charity work, and genuinely loves doing it and wants to do it. He and Meghan were hounded out. We won't go into the reasons for that now, but they were hounded out by the press and forced by the palace. And I think if he can only enhance what we have. If you look at what's left, if you look at the palace balcony up for a fly past these days, what's left? I mean, well,
you've got the young ones.
But they're not on stream yet, are they?
No,
they're only a few years old.
So you've got, but I'm talking about now.
Yeah,
so you've got Anne's just turned 76, and thank God for Anne, because she soldiers on.
I agree.
Charles, sadly, is getting older, like we all are, but has still treatment for cancer.
Yeah.
And who else is there? I mean,
the one we can't mention. No, then there's Edward.
Who wants to see him?
Edward?
Yeah, I mean, come on.
He's tall. Christo, would you want Harry to come back? Because as this is like, what's an example? You've got a band like Dexy's Midnight Runners. They're down to 2 people. They're not the Midnight Runners anymore. You need some more people in there to play the trumpets.
Well, maybe, but you need some people in there to play the trumpets that you trust. And I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. I'm sorry, I really don't. Yes, it does matter. It does matter because every single time he and Meghan throw grenades at the royal family via books, interviews and the like, which they did, you undermine the crown. And that goes against the memory of Queen Elizabeth II. It goes against the fact that our head of state, whom we are supposed to, I think, hopefully have a little bit of respect for. And I'm sorry, I just don't trust them. I don't trust that these meetings won't end up in the sequel to Spare, which many people think is coming.
OK, let's speak to Tom in Manchester. Tom, what's your view on this?
Oh, hello. Good morning. Good morning, panel.
Hello, Tom.
Oh, well, you know me, Jeremy. If there's 2 things that grind my gears more in my adult life, it's Keir Starmer and Mr. and Mrs. Morning Markle. I mean, no, his bed, he can lie in it. I used to have a lot of time for Harry, but, he spent years trashing the monarchy. If he doesn't like England so much, why do you want to come back? They'll only bring Miss Markle with her, and that's the line too far for me.
I don't know, you won't agree with that, Nina.
First of all, Tom, he has not spent his time trashing the monarchy. Whatever has been said has been so amplified that it's completely ridiculous. And always blame the woman, blame Markle. And in terms of, he did a book, Spare, but his mother did a book. His father did a book with Jonathan Dimbleby.
That's true.
So he has done nothing different to what his parents did.
Jonathan Dimbleby's book with Charles did not trash the royal family in the way that Harry's did.
He did not trash the royal family. And
one paragraph where he said that he didn't have much emotional love when he was growing up, Charles. Whereas Harry's, but the reason for the book, it's called Spare, talking about how dreadful it was that he was the spare, wasn't considered, all of this stuff.
No,
the entire reason for the book.
That's not trashing the monarchy.
Tom, are you sure that he trashed the monarchy? Tom?
What about the Oprah? What about the Oprah?
Okay.
Oprah.
The Oprah interview. What was it so dreadful that was said in that interview? What was said was Meghan said that there was somebody within the royal family who asked queried what the colour of the skin of their child would be. Now, that is, if that's a factual thing, that is not trashing the monarchy. It's telling the truth.
The spin was they are racist, wasn't it?
Was framed that it was asked negatively based on it being a bad thing if the skin colour was whatever the skin colour might be, rather than it being a genuine query. We don't know, and they knew exactly what they were doing.
Let's just question that. Why would somebody ask that unless it was a racist comment?
Because I wonder who the baby's going to take after. I wonder if it'll favour the mum or the dad.
Okay,
why would you not ask that question?
You can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, OK, everybody asked that sort of question, and at the same time say it's racist and dreadful. You can't have it both ways.
They framed it that
in
way.
Manchester, also Manchester, hi.
Hello.
Hello, Alice.
Yeah, for God's sake, it's like Nina Miskow has never, ever, ever, ever in her whole 70-odd years or however old she is, she's never had 80, all right then, never had a racist thought in her life. I mean, for goodness sake,
I don't understand what are you trying to say, Alice?
Well, I'm not trying to say it. I'm telling you, in your life, are you trying to say, hand on heart, growing up, you've never, ever had a racist thought in your life?
But what's the relevance of the question, Alice? Help us understand.
Well, I'm trying to answer the question. The fact is, she was talking about the fact that it was racist to ask about the colour, what colour the child is going to be. There's nothing racist about it. And by the way, again, Jeremy, in case you remember, or maybe you don't, I'm from India originally, so I'm a woman of colour. And if somebody asked that question, I wouldn't take offence.
Alice,
OK?
Alice,
there are two schools of thought on that, and I quite agree with you, Alice.
Alice, I was not taking offence at that. I was quoting it, saying that it was not trashing the royal family by implying that they were racist.
And Christo said...
It was Christo who said it.
Christo said the tone and the framing is what was indicting them.
Blame Christo, not me. Because he's the one who's saying what you're saying.
Alice, have we got it all wrong, Alice?
No, I've not got it all wrong.
No, have we got it all wrong?
Anyway, the question was, should Harry spend more time in the UK? No, he shouldn't. Okay. He was completely disloyal to this country, to the monarchy, we are a monarchy, and he was an essential part of that monarchy, and he completely let them down, let the country down.
Okay.
And as far as I'm concerned, for Nina Miskow to sit there as though she knows, he was hounded out of the country, he was hounded by the press.
Yes, he was. He was hounded. The pile-on that Meghan, particularly, always blame the woman, got for years and years and years is akin to what Professor Jason Arday had. She was piled on for years and years and years and years, and it still goes.
We're going to move on.
There is one question that keeps coming up whenever Prince Harry returns to Britain. Should he come back more often? And judging by the reaction, this is not simply a question about travel plans. It has become a much bigger argument about family, the monarchy, the British media, forgiveness, and whether someone who has stepped away from royal life can still have a meaningful place in the country he once called home. According to the discussion featured on the Jeremy Vine segment, Prince Harry is reportedly hoping to return to the UK every few months after his successful visit in July. The idea is that he could spend more time with family, continue his charity work, and support the Invictus Games. And frankly, why shouldn't he? Harry now lives in California with Meghan and their children, Archie and Lilibet. But living in America does not erase the fact that Britain is his home country, that much of his charitable work has deep roots there, and that his connection to causes such as the Invictus Games remains incredibly strong. The July visit was particularly significant because, according to the transcript, Harry, Meghan and their children were hosted by the King and Queen at Highgrove for a private family occasion. That detail alone should make people stop and think. Because for years the loudest narrative surrounding Harry has been that he supposedly has no place in Britain anymore, that he has abandoned the country, that he has turned his back on the institution, that he should stay in California and never look back. But what happens when the reality doesn't fit that storyline? Harry comes back. He carries out engagements, he continues his charitable work, he supports Invictus, he spends time with family, and suddenly the conversation becomes, why is he coming back? Maybe the better question is, why shouldn't he? One of the strongest points raised during the Jeremy Vine discussion was that Harry could actually bring something valuable to the royal family and the wider institution. One commentator described Harry as naturally charming, good with people, and genuinely passionate about charity work. And whether people like Harry personally or not, those qualities are difficult to dismiss. Harry has spent years working with veterans and wounded, injured and sick service personnel through the Invictus movement. This is not something he appears to have simply picked up as a convenient public relations project. It has become one of the defining parts of his public life. And that matters, because when critics talk about Harry returning to Britain, they often reduce the entire conversation to palace politics. But Harry's relationship with Britain is bigger than palace balconies. It is about his military background, it is about his charitable commitments, it is about the organisations and communities he has supported, and it is about his family. If Harry wants to return periodically to continue those commitments, why should that automatically be treated as some kind of betrayal? That is where the criticism starts to become difficult to understand. One caller in the segment argued that Harry and Meghan had repeatedly attacked the royal family through interviews, books and other public appearances. That is certainly the interpretation some critics have chosen. But there is another way of looking at what happened. Harry and Meghan have spoken publicly about their experiences. They have discussed their relationship with the institution, the media attention surrounding them, and the circumstances that contributed to their decision to step back from royal duties. That does not automatically mean that every criticism they make is an attack on the monarchy itself. There is a huge difference between criticizing an institution and wanting that institution to disappear. And this distinction is constantly lost in the debate. Harry can have complicated feelings about his family. He can disagree with decisions made by the institution. He can object to the treatment he and Meghan received. He can discuss painful experiences. And at the same time, he can still love Britain. He can still care about his father. He can still care about his wider family. He can still care about veterans. He can still care about charitable causes. Those things are not mutually exclusive, but the critics want them to be. They want a simple story. Harry left, therefore he hates Britain. Harry spoke publicly, therefore he hates the monarchy. Harry married Meghan, therefore Meghan must be responsible for everything. Harry returned, therefore he must have some hidden agenda. Real human relationships simply don't work that way. And perhaps that is why the possibility of Harry making regular trips back to Britain is so interesting. It suggests that the story may not be finished. It suggests that distance has not necessarily destroyed every relationship. And it suggests that family reconciliation, even when complicated, is still possible. The transcript also included criticism of Harry's memoir, Spare, with one panellist suggesting that future meetings could somehow become a sequel to the book. But again, this assumes that the only possible outcome of Harry returning is another public confrontation. Why? Why can't Harry return simply because he wants to see his family? Why can't he return because he has charitable commitments? Why can't he return because Invictus matters to him? Why must every visit be interpreted as a strategic move against the royal family? This obsession with finding a hidden motive behind every Harry and Meghan decision is exactly what makes the debate so exhausting. When Harry stays away, critics say he has abandoned Britain. When Harry comes back, critics ask why he is here. When he talks, critics say he is attacking the monarchy. When he stays quiet, critics speculate about Harry and Meghan are a family. They make decisions together. And if Harry is spending more time in Britain, there is nothing inherently strange about his wife and children being part of that conversation. The July visit, as described in the transcript, was particularly notable because Harry, Meghan and their children were hosted privately at Highgrove. That is a family matter. It does not need to be turned into another battlefield. And perhaps that is the most encouraging part of all. Because beneath the endless headlines, there are still people who are related to each other. There are still grandparents. There are still grandchildren. There are still cousins. There is still a father and a son. Whatever has happened publicly, family relationships can be complicated without being royal balcony, not necessarily by restoring him to the exact role he had before, not necessarily by pretending that every disagreement has disappeared, simply by allowing him to be a son, a brother, a father, and a British citizen who can come home. That should not be controversial. Another major part of the debate is the question of the monarchy itself. One caller argued that Harry's public comments undermine the crown and disrespect the memory of Queen Elizabeth II. But again, disagreement with particular aspects of royal life does not automatically transition without agreeing with everything they have done. You can love a family member while disagreeing with their decisions. And you can criticize an institution while still respecting the people who work within it. The idea that Harry must choose between his personal experiences and his affection for Britain is simply too simplistic. And let's be honest, royal families have always had disagreements. Members of royal families have written books. They have given interviews. They have publicly disagreed with each other. They have had difficult relationships. What makes Harry's situation different is the enormous media machine surrounding him. Every sentence becomes a headline. Every photograph becomes a theory. Every visit becomes a strategic calculation. Every family meeting becomes a potential scandal. And then people wonder why the situation feels so tense. Imagine trying to repair a family relationship while knowing that millions of strangers are waiting to analyze every interaction. That is not easy, which is why private family meetings can be more meaningful than public statements. If Harry and his father are finding ways to spend time together privately, perhaps that should be viewed as progress rather than another opportunity to speculate. The Jeremy Vine segment also revisited the Oprah interview and the controversy surrounding Meghan's account of a conversation about the possible skin tone of her future child. That remains one of the most fiercely debated parts of the Sussex story. The discussion showed exactly why this subject remains so difficult. Some people believe the question itself was inherently troubling. Others argue that asking what a baby might look like is not automatically racist, and that context and tone matter. The important point is that the public does not have complete access to every private detail surrounding that conversation. That means people should be careful about presenting their interpretation as unquestionable fact. But what is clear is that Meghan experienced the conversation in a way that deeply affected her. And Harry and Meghan decided to speak about it publicly. People are entitled to debate that decision. What they are not entitled to do is pretend that the Sussexes' experiences have no emotional consequences simply because they interpret those experiences differently. This is why the criticism of Harry returning to Britain feels so strange. If the goal is genuinely reconciliation, then shouldn't reconciliation involve allowing people to have complicated feelings? Shouldn't it involve recognizing that the past happened without requiring everyone to agree on every detail? Shouldn't it involve moving forward? Harry does not need to erase Spare to return to Britain. He does not need to pretend every interview never happened. He does not need to apologize for having feelings. And he certainly does not need permission from television callers to visit the country where he was born. What Harry does need is a safe and constructive environment where family relationships can exist without every interaction becoming ammunition for the next media cycle. And that brings us to one of the biggest issues surrounding his return: security. Harry has repeatedly expressed concerns about security when visiting Britain. That issue has been at the heart of his legal battles and his decisions about returning. So when people casually say, "Why doesn't he just come back more often?" they should remember that Harry does not experience a UK visit in exactly the same way as an ordinary person flying home to see relatives. His profile is enormous. His security concerns are well documented, and his family has to take those considerations seriously. That doesn't mean every concern must automatically be accepted without scrutiny. It simply means that anyone discussing his return should acknowledge that there are practical issues involved. And if those issues can be managed, then regular visits should not be treated as some outrageous development. In fact, there could be enormous benefits. Harry's continued connection to Invictus could strengthen the organisation's relationship with Britain. His charitable work could continue. His children could maintain connections with their father's home country. And perhaps most importantly, regular visits could make the whole situation feel less dramatic. Think about that. If Harry comes to Britain every few months, spends time with family, attends charitable events and then returns to California, eventually it becomes normal. The headlines become less explosive. The speculation becomes less intense. The public moves on. Sometimes the best way to end a controversy is to stop treating it like a controversy. Harry doesn't need a grand royal comeback. He doesn't need a balcony appearance. He doesn't need a formal announcement. He can simply come home. And if he wants to spend time with his father and extended family, that should be welcomed. There is something deeply sad about the idea that a son cannot visit his father's country without an entire army of commentators deciding whether he deserves to be there. Britain belongs to more than the institution. It belongs to its people. And Harry's connection to the country cannot simply be switched off because his relationship with the royal establishment became complicated. He grew up there. He served there. He worked there. He built charities there. He experienced enormous personal loss there. Of course, Britain remains part of him. And perhaps that is why the idea of Harry returning every few months feels less like a political event and more like a family member finally trying to create a sustainable relationship with home. The critics may continue to shout. They may continue to predict another book. They may continue to blame Meghan. They may continue to insist that Harry has betrayed the monarchy. But none of those arguments change the fundamental reality. Harry can love his family and still have boundaries. He can love Britain and still live in America. He can support Invictus without returning to royal duties. He can criticize aspects of royal life without becoming an enemy of every member of his family. And he can choose to come home. Perhaps the biggest lesson from all of this is that reconciliation doesn't have to look like a fairy tale. It can be messy. It can be gradual. It can happen privately. It can involve people who still disagree. And it can happen without everyone suddenly pretending that the past never happened. If Harry really does intend to return every few months, I would argue that the healthiest response is not outrage. It is to let him. Let him see his family. Let him support causes he cares about. Let him work with veterans. Let him spend time in Britain without turning every appearance into a referendum on his marriage. And perhaps most importantly, let Harry and Meghan decide what their family relationship with Britain looks like. Because after everything they have experienced, they have earned the right to make those decisions for themselves. The people criticising Harry may never change their minds. They may continue to believe that leaving royal life was unforgivable. They may continue to believe that Meghan is responsible for everything. They may continue to view every Sussex appearance through the most negative possible lens. But there are also millions of people who see something different. They see a couple who stepped away from an environment that they felt was damaging to them. They see parents trying to protect their children. They see Harry continuing his charitable work. They see Meghan building her own projects. And they see two people who can disagree with parts of the royal institution while still maintaining love for family. So, if Harry wants to come back every few months, come home, Harry. Do your charity work. Support Invictus. Spend time with your father. Let your children know the country their father grew up in. And don't let the noise convince you that you have somehow lost the right to return. Because Britain isn't owned by the loudest commentators, and family isn't defined by television debates. Maybe the real turning point isn't whether Harry returns. Maybe it is whether people finally allow him to return without turning every visit into another war. That is the question worth asking. Not, does Harry deserve to come back? But rather, can Britain finally learn to welcome him home without demanding that he surrender his independence first? And what do you think? Would you welcome Prince Harry making regular visits to the UK? Do you think more time in Britain could help rebuild family relationships, or do you think the disagreements of the past make that impossible? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because this is clearly a debate that isn't going away anytime soon. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join us for more updates and commentary on Harry, Meghan, the Sussex family, and everything happening around them. If you support independent Sussex-focused commentary, hit that subscribe button because there is plenty more to come. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.